Welcome to 100 Yards of Football. And tonight is our Legends segment night. And it's Monday night, National Championship night. So we're going to give you a great show. And then we're going to go and get ready to watch this great game tonight. We're all excited about that. I got back with me tonight. I got Mr. Leslie McGinley, great wide receiver from Delray Beach. And I got Andre Thaddeus with me again tonight, running back safety from Delray Beach, Atlantic High School greats. But tonight, guys, we want to talk about something a little different tonight. You know, these guys are football legends. You know, we know about the football in Delray Beach, Florida. But tonight, we're going to talk about some things that are important to our youth. We're going to talk about education and entrepreneurship, which is an important thing. One thing I can remember, guys, when I was growing up, I was always told this about football. Make sure you get your education, because you can't play football forever. We all heard that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but then again, when you study the history of our country, the history of how things were back in the 20s during the Great Depression, how things are right now currently, you know, with what's going on in the world today, the playing field is not quite the same. So every generation thought education was the key, even though I personally believe, you know, you got to get as much education as possible. But education don't necessarily equates to success, right? So let's have a discussion about that. First of all, let me start with you. I mean, you played football at a high level. You played college ball. And then after college, pretty much you started to go and find your way. Tell me about education versus entrepreneurship in the sense of employee versus ownership.
Yeah, so that's a great question, Bobby. I'm glad you asked, because, you know, for the first 21 years of my career, all I knew was working for someone. All I knew was corporate America. That's where I had been since 25, all the way up until 45, 46, 47. So that's all I knew was, you know, earning a wage, you know, like we all do, getting a paycheck, you know. So that's how we were always taught, that to earn a living, you know, you get that wage, you pay your bills, you try to save a little bit, and you move on. But one thing my mom always taught me was, you know, you really have to hustle for what you want. Work 2 jobs, 3 jobs if that's what you want, if that's what you need to do to get what you want. And she always did that. So she was kind of that example growing up, you know, and so I admired that. So early on, I worked 2 or 3 jobs. You know, even though I had a corporate job, I would work part-time jobs just to have a little bit extra to do whatever, save whatever. So that was great. I mean, but it was working hard. You know, most of my hours were spent on someone's time clock. And so one day a buddy of mine came to me and he said, "Hey man, I have this opportunity. You know, I have this food truck that we selling seafood, and you should come down to Austin and check it out." So, you know, and I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. That's why I went back and got my MBA. You talked about education. You know, I went back and got my MBA in 2006. So I had been out of school for a while, but I just felt like it was important to go back and get that extra step, because I wanted to learn a lot about business. I knew that's what I would eventually wanted to do, but I knew that would give me about 40% of the stuff that I didn't feel like I already knew. I felt like going back to get that education would do that. Plus, I felt like my kids need to see me walk across the stage so that I could set the example for them, because they were coming up and I was like, hey, you know, we still got to do this. We had a nice house, we had nice cars, but they saw that it still wasn't enough. You know, dad still had to go back to school. Dad still had to, you know, to do what he needed to do, because as an executive in healthcare, when I first got my a vice president's role in Columbus, Ohio, I was the youngest VP there. I was 33. But one thing I noticed, Bobby, everybody on my floor had that I didn't have, and that was an advanced degree.
Okay.
So that was one of my factors for going back, because I was like, I don't want to be passed up on a promotion or whatever, and I don't want them to use that excuse. So I want to take that completely off the table, right? So that's why, and that's another reason why I went back, but more so because of I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So So basically, long story short, we started, he said, hey, let's open up this food, cart or whatever he called it, this trailer. I was like, no, man, let's do a brick and mortar.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, a brick and mortar? No, that's too much. That's going to cost too much. It's like, no, man, trust me, let's do it. Because I had been running or overseeing a food service operation for my hospital system, and that was a $90 million a year operation. So I knew all about food. I knew how to negotiate contracts. I knew all those things. So I said, hey, we all bring something different to the table. My buddy brought the marketing piece and sales. I brought that piece. My other buddy, he lived there. So, so we just kind of figured it out. And Bobby, it was fun. It was so funny that you asked this question, man, because, I had some money that I wasn't doing anything with. So I put it in a bank account. I opened up a credit union account. And we're straight talk, no chasers. So I want people to really understand how this thing works. Right. So I put $100,000 in this account, in this credit union account, and God had blessed me abundantly.
Amen.
And at the end of the year, I went and looked at that account, and I had like $101,000 and maybe $200. He had earned like $1,200 on $100,000.
Right.
So I took this is a real story. So I took $20,000 of that $100,000 and I invested it into this restaurant. $20,000, right? Now remember, I only made $1,200 in the whole year. So I took $20,000 that the first year, it was three of us partners, three of us. The first year, my first restaurant, I made $150,000 off of that $20,000 that pulled from that 100.
I love it.
You see what I'm saying? So people really can't grasp like the magnitude of entrepreneurship. Right.
Absolutely.
A year later, I opened up a second location. I was pulling $120,000 from that location. I spent another $20,000 getting that low. So I spent $40,000, and now I got $270,000 coming back to me, as opposed to that $1,200 on $100,000.
There you go.
And so it became repeatable. I kept repeating the process, and I was like, wow, I've been working this hard for someone else. And I could have been taking my own money, whether it's 10 grand or whether it's 5 grand, and doing something different and having our own. Because what I told my kids, Bobby, was, when I retire from corporate America, I can't leave you. They're not going to give you my job.
Right.
But I can leave you some restaurants. See, that's why I got crustaceans right here across my chest.
There you go.
I can leave you some restaurants. I can leave you a trucking company. I can leave you some other things.
Right.
And so that's why it's so important. And now my kids are like, hey, Dad, I want to get into the business.
Right.
Hey, my daughter owns 10% of the crustaceans here in Charlotte. My oldest. My youngest son, he wants to be with me in the trucking business.
That's cool.
My middle child wants to be in the restaurant business. That's so cool, it really, really makes a difference. Right.
Absolutely. That's powerful. That's powerful, man.
Yeah, man. So, so when you think about it, Bobby, that 50,000 of the 100,000 went into opening up 4 restaurants.
Right. Exactly.
And now your return is far more greater than you're going to get on, it's thousands and thousands of % return off of the same money that you were just recycling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Andre, I want to ask you the same question, but it's amazing how, and I don't want to make this show sound like I'm saying there's a negative part to education, but there's a real serious component. We need to be educated, but let's know this: school is not for everybody, right? And that's one of the things we need to make known. That
absolutely,
I think from a parental standpoint, from a community standpoint, from being in high school alone, teachers and everybody trying to push you to go to college. Now, the cost of college, if you can't go on a scholarship, the cost of college is horrendous. So how do we go to college, get an education, pay for it, and can't even get a job when we get out of college? So these are some of the things, we live in a different time now where, first of all, the economy is not doing great. It can be doing better. It's not doing great, right? The idea of someone going to work for IBM and working 40 years, working their way up to middle management and retiring with a pension plan, that day is over. The way I look at it, it's over. So Andre, talk about it from your perspective, man. I like to hear what you got to say.
It's important. That's the first thing. So I am a firm believer in education of your mind, of your skill set. And what I mean by that, you can have a young boy who loves to build things. So how do we make sure he's educated to get the certifications to do that? So we all went to Atlantic Community High School, and just going back in the last 5 years, they have a full-fledged construction program at Atlantic Community High School.
Oh, wow.
And as we all know, if you come out there with some certification, full-fledged, so they have built over 11 homes in the last 6 years. Eagle's Nest, what they call it.
That's powerful. That's
and one of the young men, Chris Ferguson, actually, he has a scholarship. He graduated from there about 6 years ago. He got hired this major company in Atlanta. Matter of fact, he was very integral in helping build the Georgia Dome. The new Mercedes Benz.
Right. Wow.
So he worked for that company.
Okay.
So when I say education, I mean stuff like that. Less talking about crustaceans. Well, what if you want to be a chef? That's not going anywhere.
Right.
You know, so it's an opportunity where I could be an executive chef. I could be a whatever chef I can be, but I can have my own crustaceans and run it. So I think the education is more than the SAT, ACT. I think a lot of times now, yes, when I left Atlantic High School, what was important is I had to go to college. And after I didn't get a chance to go to Florida State, I said, now I'm going to pick the next best college that's for me academically and all that. And that's what made me start looking at the Big Ten with all those different schools. But at the same time, it was still football, right? A lot of us still had that football mindset. I want to go to the league. I want to go to the league.
Oh yeah.
Those dreams got couldn't do it. After the fourth NFL team told me you're not going to pass any physicals, go start your career. I did. And I knew I wanted to work in social services, but what I didn't know, Bobby, they don't pay in social services.
Exactly.
And I didn't realize that until about 18 months into the game. I loved the job, working with all the people and all that, but like the paycheck was looking a little narrow.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, here I am. Went to the University of Minnesota. I have a degree. I'm ready to work. I started coaching at the time, and doing the social services. And it wasn't until that thought process, I need to find that hustle.
That's right.
So what I did, I learned how to play golf. I had a couple buddies of mine. One looked like me. The other two did not look like me. I started going golfing with those guys. And just being on those things, I used to hear it. There are more deals made on a golf course than a boardroom.
That's right.
I used to hear that all the time.
Right.
And sure enough, one guy just talking, I think he had one or two beers, and they was talking about real estate. And I was listening. My ears perked up. I listened to it, and I went home to my wife at the time. I'm like, check your credit score. I'm gonna check my credit score. And I'm very cheap. So I had like a 755 credit score. I was like 25 years old, right? She had a great credit score. And we're like, we're going to go buy a duplex. And just like in the hood, so they call it North Minneapolis, South Minneapolis, but it was still nice. It was nice areas. There's one guy, he told us how to do it. Buy this one, take the equity out, buy another one. And sure enough, my friend and I from Detroit, Michigan, Frank Jackson, he and I ended up getting about 5 duplexes in 2 years. So that's when that whole entrepreneur spirit, my wife loved candles. Loved candles and oils. So her and one of her girlfriends, they started doing the candles, going to shops, the exhibits on the weekends kind of stuff, and she was selling her candles. So that whole entrepreneur spirit is what helped us supplement that social services, because I was not going to make any money in social service, but I know that's what I wanted to do. And I know I wanted to be home for my kids. Wow. I wanted to make sure if they played sports, I was there. If they did anything on campus, I was able to be there as opposed to doing the traveling. I had a lot of, at that time in Minneapolis, they were recruiting minorities at the IBMs, the Honeywells, the 3M, the pharmaceutical company, but you traveled your butt off.
Oh, yeah.
So I had some buddies that missed 6, 7, 8 years of their kids' life because they're chasing that dollar. They're making $157.98, but you're never home.
Right, exactly.
So just through listening to entrepreneur spirit and just learning the education about real estate. And I just think then, and I came back here and it's funny, Les, and I ran in a rerun. And I started talking to rerun about real estate and Steve Adderley. And so those guys, so I was able to pass some of that stuff when I came back here to Florida. So that was it. And I've been doing it ever since to our young boys. My wife and I have a nonprofit, Connect to Greatness, and thank you, Les. We have a scholarship fund that we started. So in 2024 will be the first year that our first graduates. And to your point, Bobby, we want to have some dollars available so when they do go to college, we can at least assist them that initial year to help those parents get over the hump if they don't get the athletics, if you will.
Absolutely.
So that's all we do. We teach them probably about out of 8 months. Yeah, we teach entrepreneur.
See, that's what it's all about, because you know, I've always heard this growing up. If you want to become a millionaire, find somebody who's a millionaire, follow them, and do whatever they do. Well, let's just be honest. Every millionaire is not going to allow you to follow them around.
Right.
So you always heard that. So what I like is having an opportunity to mentor kids.
Yes.
And I'm a big believer in wherever you live, that's your world. And so you should be touching your community wherever you live, helping kids, you know, helping people grow and be better, right? One of the things about me, I've always, you know, football was everything for me. I mean, it was everything for me. I put all my everything into that one bucket. And, you know, even in high school, you know, I've been in a classroom, man, I couldn't keep my mind off the football field. So I really couldn't focus in the classroom. When I was in high school, I really couldn't focus, right? And then my mom, you know, they were not educated. So my mom, listen, this is no joke. I did my homework, but I never did homework at home. My mom can never say she saw me sitting down at the table doing homework. So there was really no accountability from the home about getting my schoolwork. But Andre, the thing that kept me accountable was to be eligible to play Friday night. All right.
Yep.
So that was the nugget in front of me. You know, like, dude, you got to get these grades. You got to get these grades because hey, Friday night you got to be available. And so that was the thing that kept me going to the classroom. You know, and because of that, when I went to Florida State, I didn't have great study skills. All right. So I go to school at high school and I'll get C's and B's just by listening. Coach Harris taught me math. That turned me around because then I figured I could do it. And then the next year, Mr. Laurie, I don't know if y'all remember Mr. Rufus Laurie. I don't know if he was at Atlantic by that time when y'all were there.
Yes, he was. Algebra 1 teacher. That was my Algebra 1 teacher.
He was a genius in the classroom, man. And so I had an A in Algebra 1, Andre. And so, you know, to have an A, for me to have an A in math, bruh, I was so focused. Yeah, I'll never forget. This is a true story. In 4 years of high school, I never skipped a class. I skipped one class one day. I had Mr. Laurie class. I had an A in Algebra 1, and I was not ready for the exam. So I skipped class that day so I can make it up so I can keep my A, right? And I did that, right? Only class I ever skipped because I wasn't ready for the exam. But anyway, he taught me, and when Mr. Laurie taught me Algebra 1, it made me believe in myself. Hey, like, you know what? I can do this, man. I can do it. But, dudes, I've been hustling since day one, since the time I've been in the 9th grade. I go to school in the morning, 7 o'clock at Atlantic. I go to whatever practice I was doing after school, right after 2:33, whatever we started. And then after that, I went to work. I washed dishes at a restaurant for 4 years in high school. I eat at the restaurant for dinner. I get home by 10 every night, and I do it again the next day.
Mm-hmm.
But Andre, what I had going for me, I had a pocket full of money all the time.
Yes. And you know, but that's it though. You had that drive. And I just think, Leslie, I don't know if you remember, I used to date a young lady in high school, Frida, her mom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She used to take us to the store, Bobby, and we bought bags full of candy. And another young man went to Spanish River, Reggie Cox. And she said, I'm going to give you all this money to buy the candy. And we sold the candy at school. So starting my 11th grade year, I was selling candy out my backpack at Atlantic High School. That was a whole lot of money back then for the candy. Now it's $1. Anything you say is $1. It was like a quarter, right? But those quarters added up. And, and I 11th and 12th grade year, we sold it. And maybe at the end of each week, I have $15, $20. But that was that was weekend money. That was awesome in 1985, in 1986.
Yeah.
So that was enough money to enjoy your weekend.
Absolutely.
So, but I never had to ask my mom, hey, mom, can I get $5 to go to the movies? 11, I never. Prom was coming up. I never had to ask her to help rent the car or help rent my tuxedo because I had that candy money. So I'm absolutely right with you. So that's why I firmly believe entrepreneur mindsets need to be put into our young kids at a very early age.
Very young age.
Yep.
Especially with the knowledge and with the things that are available. Because even now, if you think about it, I think about when I was in high school, the kind of monies I was making washing dishes every week, right? I could have been buying, today I could buy cryptocurrency in high school. Or I could start a Roth IRA in high school. You know, one of the things that turned me on in high school, I took an economic course, teaching us how to trade stocks and bonds. And we were looking at investment business, daily news back then. And I was getting turned on with that, man. And so the fast forward ahead, you know, when I went to college, I took 4 economic courses, did extremely well. When I stopped playing for the Falcons, I got in financial services, got my Series 663 license, got insurance license. I had about 4 or 5 different licenses, right? And I started doing, I first started out just doing life insurance. And then I graduated to doing contractual investment stuff in the public school systems, 403Bs, right? And I love talking about stocks and bonds, how to diversify a portfolio, how your dollar cost averages, the rule of 72, things like that. Simple, basic investment fundamentals and seeing money double, talking about how money works and things like that. That turned me on. And I'm a guy, my personality is always, I love helping people. Right? And I found out that teachers in the public school systems, only 30% of those teachers had a 403B or a tax sheltered annuity, right? And they all had their pension plan, but they didn't save extra money. And so I was doing that and thought and really did a good job doing that. I retired. I started in 1994. I retired in 2010 from that business, but I loved it. And so, you know, always finding ways to invest money, to make money work. Back in 1984. Oh, no. Back in 1982, I had an uncle who's my godfather as well. Called me one day. He said, Bobby, there's a piece of property on Atlantic Avenue for sale. He said, man, you can get this property cheap. This lady's in dire need for money. And I go, well, is there a building on the property? He goes, no, it's just vacant land. He says on the north side of Atlantic between 8th and 7th Avenue. Okay. The lady wanted $32,000 for this property. And so my comeback to my uncle was, man, look, if it's not investment property, I don't want it. I just don't want it, right? Well, about 3 months later, she sold that property to a gas station. That gas station still sitting on the corner of Atlantic and 8th Avenue, sitting there. Right? It used to be Amoco Gas. And she sold it, instead of selling it for $32,000, which I had the opportunity, she sold it for $85,000. And a couple months after I turned it down. So when that happened, that taught me something. Here's what it taught me. My uncle is a highly successful businessman. He had a 3rd grade education. He's from the country. He don't sound articulate. He don't sound like he's a smart man, but he was a businessman. And so from that point on, he called me again in 84. He said, look, the old Al's Market's for sale. You need to come get it. I said, I'm on the way. And I bought that property. I own it today, right there on the south side between 10th and 11th, right? I've owned that property forever, right? And then I started buying my family properties in the town of Delray. Every piece of property that my family owned on the Butler side, I own it. And so I started to learn. And then I got so excited, I started buying houses in Atlanta, right? And so that's what got me going. And then now I look at that property on that grocery store on Atlantic Avenue, Andre. Listen at this now, because we have to get these guys real numbers.
I know it. When I came down here, everyone said Bobby owns all that stuff.
But Andre, just think about this now. So in 1984, I paid $49,000 for that building. Think about that. That building alone is a 6-figure income to me every year.
Yep.
I paid $49,000 for it. So when you start to invest in things like that, your mind open. And here's the neatest thing. We got to learn how to employ our money so our money can work for us.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's the key. That's what you're saying.
Yep.
Andre, that's what you're saying. Let's put our money to work, because there's nothing like multiple streams of income. Everybody hear that term, but it's nothing like multiple streams of income.
Absolutely.
It's nothing like it. So,
absolutely.
So I always say this, and Andre, you both of y'all hit this on the head. I went back to school because when I left Florida State, I had 8 hours to get my degree. And to make a long story short, I never did until a few years ago. Got 4 boys. They all have their college degrees, but I was so hard on them about their education. And it hit me one day. You preaching to your kids to get educated. You hadn't even finished. So I didn't need it, but I went back to get it, just to complete it, just to say I did it. I had to do it because I was the only one, Andre, in my household that didn't have a degree from college. And now I can say I got my degree from Florida.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Oh, yeah.
That is awesome.
But it's crazy. I had 8 hours to finish when I left. When I left, come to Atlanta. And really, I should have finished before I left. We didn't win the national title my senior year. I got mad at the world. I didn't want to go to school no more. I couldn't do anything about it. My college career was over. Yeah. I mean, I was angry. And Andre, the thing that saved me, we talk about track. Track has meant a lot to me. My track coach came to my wife's apartment because I wouldn't go to the football complex no more because I was done, right? I was mad. And so somebody told him where I was, and he knocked on the door one night, and he came in. He said, look, we got a track meet this weekend. We need you. And I got going again. I got my stuff going again, and ended up withdrawing from school, saying, well, I only got 8 hours to get it, so I get it in the spring quarter. We're on quarter systems. And then I got drafted in the spring, party over here, party over there. And always wanted to go back and never did, but we got it done. So I believe in getting education, but I think we also need to find out how to be entrepreneurs. How do we become owners as opposed to employees in the world? We got to become owners. There's nothing wrong with working for people because we all work for people. Another thing, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna shut up and let you guys talk. I love football, and so when I first started playing at the Falcons, the first thing I did in Delray was I put on a football camp in 1981. No, it was 82, first of 82 at Atlantic High School, and not realizing how much I love the game, that this could be something I can do for life, right? And so me and I did football camps periodically over the years. And then me and a former teammate, Falcon teammate, we joined in together and we started doing football camps in 2020. And we got a nonprofit. It's called Kids and Pros. You can look us up. We've trained over 70,000 kids in the last 20 years doing football camps. And what we do, Les and Andre, we scholarship all the kids. You come to the camp free because we have a nonprofit. We go raise the money to put the events on.
Mm-hmm.
And so we love it. And in the camps, not only do we teach basic football fundamental skills, we teach them life lessons. We teach them life principles, you know, in the camp. And so I've been doing that still. That's how I stay in the game of football. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, Bobby, I just want to say something, man. I think you asked a question earlier about how do we show others and teach others about entrepreneurship.
Absolutely.
And, you know, for me, man, I mean, I think, you know, Andre, I didn't know Andre's story, like what he had done in Minnesota. You know, I didn't know your story, the land that you own, but I think people need to hear more about that kind of stuff. Absolutely. You know, I mean, when I was growing up, I remember I had some positive influences and role models around me, but I paid attention, but I really didn't understand it at the time.
Right.
You know, like my dad's sister, Hyacinth. I know y'all remember Clay and Hyde's Boutique. So my aunt and uncle owned Clay and Hyde's Boutique, the barbershop. You know, used to go in and out of there all the time, go to the barbershop, and didn't even think about, like, they're doing their own thing.
They're doing their own thing.
You know what I mean? I was a young kid. My sister Bernadette McGinley had her own beauty salon, had property all around Delray. I never really paid attention to it. You know, my cousin Mr. Carter had a gasoline station right over there across from the graveyard on down the street from Pine Grove. He died in something happened at the station, a fire or something. And that's how. So all of these people I spent time around. But I really, and I paid attention to, and Andre, you know this, my grandmother, my Mary, as people called her, had sold candy off of her front porch. You know, and that's how she made a living. She didn't do anything else for the whole time that I knew her.
Wow.
You know, so there was examples all around, but I guess I really didn't understand at the time, you know, how to ask the questions and how to get certain things and get that, you know, and just be curious, right? So we got to figure out how to get these young kids to be curious, because guys, we all grew up in a very, you know, meek way. We didn't grow up with a silver spoon in our mouths, and I think we've all done pretty well for ourselves. I was an average student at best in high school and in college. You know, I didn't really get serious about my education until after school. You know, it was probably too late. But my point is, if we could do it, you know, these kids got to believe that they can do the same thing. You know, there's nothing. I'm not special. I'll tell you from day one, I'm nothing special. But one thing I will do is I will work. Yes. And if I don't know something, I'm gonna ask questions, and I'm gonna get mentored, and I'm gonna mentor other people. So that's why I get excited about it, because I think we have such an opportunity to change. And you know, Bobby, you know this, as African American men especially, we have a lot of work to do.
That's right.
You know, we do not support. We are crabs in a barrel in a lot of cases. That's right. When you look at the Asians, you look at the Haitians, you look at other groups, they bond together and they form corporations. They do things. They buy property, and we just, for whatever reason, man, we just don't do that, man. And that's the heartbreaking part of all of this for me. Right. Well, and Bobby, I don't know if you remember this, but my mama told me, I don't know if this was true or not, but one thing that I always said I was gonna get me one day was a Porsche, because my mama said when you made it to the league, you got a Porsche that had wings on the back of that thing, you know, like falcon wings or something. I don't know if that's true, but that's what she told me. Well, I was like, man, I gotta be like Bobby one day, man.
Well, listen, let me talk about that, right? So when I got drafted, I had an old 73 Mercury Montego. The brothers call it Broham. All right. That's what my godfather, the guy who told me about the property, bought that car for me when I went to college. And so that's how I got back and forth to Tallahassee. So when I got drafted, I kept that car.
Mm-hmm.
So I got drafted in April of 81. I kept that car. When I came to Atlanta, August for training camp, I drove that car to Atlanta. All right.
Right.
And I drove that car, and then I got married to my high school sweetheart.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a job, and so I was bumming a ride with my buddies going to the Falcon Complex because we had one car.
Mm-hmm.
Because I kept saying to myself when I got that check, don't go spending all that money.
Right.
Dude, you just don't do what everybody else do, right?
Right.
You got to bag this money. And so I was thumbing rides, and then I said, okay, I got to buy a car.
Right.
I got to buy another car. So what I did is I bought a 320i BMW, a little old 320i, right?
Mm-hmm.
I bought that. I paid $18,000 for that car.
Yes.
All right. And so I gave that to my wife, and I had the Broham. I was driving the Broham back and forth to Falcon. So then what I did, I never really liked that car because it was too little. I grew up. Y'all understand? I grew up in the pimp era, right? Everybody had a big gangster ride, right? Like a big Cadillac, a big Lincoln, right? That's my generation.
Right. Right.
So that car was too little. So to make a long story short, I got in a car accident. And so when I got in the accident, it was my excuse to trade the car for a bigger BMW. So I bought the 528e.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That was my wife's car. And then I got this big bonus in January. I said, you know what? I need my own car. So I went and got a Porsche, but I bought it used.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I got a heck of a deal. Right. I bought a 1970, it was a 79 911 triple black.
Mm.
And I had the lights, I had gold lights on them, right?
Okay.
On the front. And so, but what I paid for that car, it wasn't much. I probably somewhere around the same price as that BMW that first I bought. And so that was my car. And I drove a car, I drove it. And then all of a sudden I met this guy who was a rock and roll star who drove a 930 Porsche, which is a 911 turbo.
Right.
And so I wanted that now. So eventually I got one of those. And I would always buy used cars.
Mm-hmm.
So even when I bought the exotic car, I never bought nothing brand new.
Brand new, right?
I bought them used, and I've always been that way, man. And so, but anyway, yeah, I did have the. She was right. I had a Porsche. As a matter of fact, I had a couple Porsches.
Right.
and now I'm driving a. Listen to this. I'll tell you what I drive right now. I'm still pimping now. I'm still pimping. Dre, I'm driving a 1986 560 SEC. A 1986.
Really?
All right.
But when I tell you it's brand new, it's brand new.
Wow. That's crazy.
Those
cars are classics too, man.
That's something totally different. But one of the things I want to say, we got to get to, even on this show, I think we need to come on this show at least once a month and educate these kids and families. Because one of the things I would say, I want to leave this show and I want to give the parents information. Give your kids books to read. All right. And the first book I would say for them to read, there's a lot of great books. You can read Think and Grow Rich. I love that book. But Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yep.
Because that book, when I read that book, it was telling my life story.
Yep.
All right. I had so many people who were educated in my life who didn't know anything about money, who didn't know anything about investing, who didn't know anything about putting their money to work, but they got educated and they can teach you about school, but they couldn't teach you anything about being successful, how to make money, how to earn money.
Right.
And so in my life, I had my godfather, who I was telling you, who taught me how to buy real estate. He was a great businessman. And my granddaddy, y'all know my granddaddy. Y'all probably don't know he's my granddaddy. Y'all remember L.C. Witherspoon? Preacher. He owned.
Yes.
You know, tell you how many properties he owned in Delray. They're all red and white. He lived on Northwest 12th Avenue.
Witherspoon. Yeah, that name sounds familiar.
Yeah, that's my granddaddy.
Oh, wow.
He was a red house on 12.
Oh, yes. He was a preacher. He owned a farm out west of Delray.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He owned an asphalt company.
Wow.
Okay. He did everything. And his kids are the same way. All of his kids are the same way. He raised them up out there on that farm. They hated that farm, but they all became entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's what we need. We need, just like how we play football. Y'all can go sign up for the Delray Rocks and start your journey right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
These kids need a journey to go out and start in business at an early age.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's never too early to start teaching.
Absolutely.
Start teaching. So
absolutely.
Can I just say the one thing that's hard to have the discussion now, Les and Bobby here in Delray, is being honest with the new coaches and how they're coaching, because it's strictly X's and O's.
Yeah,
they're not talking about anything else.
Mm-hmm.
They're not talking about the importance of integrity. They're not talking about hard work. Like that whole phrase, like, if you outwork that dude in front of you, you ain't got to be bigger. You ain't got to be faster. You don't hear that anymore. Right? And I think that comes with entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
Like Les said, what the message I heard from Les is nobody's going to outwork you. Right? So nobody's going to outwork. I've always been the fastest dude in my class. Right. So that was never an issue.
Right.
But now I want to see if I can beat you in the mile, because that wasn't, you know what I mean? I just want to outwork you. I want to see if I can do more push-ups than you. Right. But that was because the people do outwork. So that's what Walt Stevens and Bump Mitchell and all them is like. You have to outwork that dude in front of you. And I just think we can incorporate entrepreneurship without saying jobs per se, but just using the outwork. Like, if you're gonna be a garbage man, grandma, be the best darn garbage man you can be. Don't let anybody outwork you. We don't hear that anymore.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
And I think that's the major part that's being missed. And the mentor piece. Les mentioned, it's so funny you said your Uncle Clay. Early Jester and Mr. Clay, those were my two outside of football mentors. That's why I became a Sigma, because of those two men. That guy cut my hair, Clay. I've been knowing him since I've been 9 years old. So Mr. Jester, for the IBM stuff, having a good job, living in the suburbs in Delray Shores. That's why I tell my mom, hey, we got to move out there. We got to move out there. I grew up on Southwest 9th Avenue until I was a senior in high school. Right. I was 17 years old before we moved to Dolphin Drive. Wow. And I never had a house. So we always lived in an apartment from birth to 17. So now it's like I saw Mr. Jester. So those are the things outside of football that I how do you do that? The credits. So you start learning that before I went to Minneapolis. So now once I get there, it's like, hey, coach, I'm not just here to jump, throw, and catch a ball now. It's like I came here because y'all have more Fortune 500 companies in Minneapolis than any other city in the United States. So that's what was the biggest part for me. Like, why am I going to go? If I get hurt, I have job opportunity at CM or Honeywell. Right. So it's just that we got to teach the kids, when you're signing these scholarships, where are you going to work after college? Are there opportunities there for you?
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I tell you, hard work is the key. I mean, if you're gonna do anything in life, you got to be willing to put the work in.
That's right.
You got to be willing to put the work in. You know.
That's right.
And I don't know, Andre, because I know the high school that's right here in my neighborhood where my kids play ball. They got an old school coach, and he's pushing them right. He's teaching them right. But overall, the game has changed so much, and it's almost like, what can you even say to kids now? Right?
Yeah, true.
Forget pushing them. You know, Bump Mitchell had his knee in my back, right? But he taught me so many things about the game.
Different generation now.
And you know, one thing about Bump Mitchell that I love, and we need business mentors and educators to be like this too. And we had educators like this, like Miss Lycurgus and people like that back in the old day. You know, Mr. Pompey, you know, Ed Harris, and I can go on and on. That would just, you know, they had their knee in your back. They pushing you, you know, and you better get it. They cared enough to push you and make you understand that, hey, look, this thing is bigger than you.
Right.
This whole thing is bigger than you. And here's the thing, man. If we could some kind of way get these kids, because Delray is so full of great athletes who know how to work on that end. But when the game is over, do they know how to transmute that from that into business? A lot of them don't. Right.
Well, you gotta think about it, Bobby, and you know this better than anybody. I mean, the parents are getting younger. You know, when I was growing up, a grandma was 70.
That's right.
You know, now a grandma is 45.
45. That's right.
You know, I mean, they just don't. I mean, I think to get to the kids, I think we somehow may have to get to the parents. Absolutely. And really get them to understand, like, hey, there's more out here. This is not just about, like Dre said, this is not just about catching a ball or throwing a ball or anything like this. This is life, because there's going to be life after this. And man, I've seen my share of black men getting overlooked for promotions because, you know, our white counterparts, it is what it is. You know, you know, they get promoted based on you know, other things other than hard work. You know, sometimes they get promoted just because of potential.
Right. Exactly.
We get promoted based on our previous results.
Right. Exactly.
You know, there's a very big difference. And, you know, we've all heard the saying, you got to work twice as hard to get half as much. That hasn't changed.
Right. Right. Well,
you know, so we got to make sure that we are educating them. You know, I just got into trucking, man. And I tell you something, and I've been on the road a little bit, just trying to learn, you know, the trucking world. But I can tell you, the people I've met at truck stops, half of them can't spell cat.
They can't, right? Absolutely.
But they own 5 or 6 trucks.
5 or 6 trucks, exactly.
You know, and I'm thinking, man, if these guys can do it, and they don't have any business acumen, they don't even understand, you know, but they know how to make that truck go, and they know how to make that truck make money.
Right. Exactly.
You know, it's little things. If we could just do that and help somebody say, hey, man, you know, like with my trucking company, you know, I'm paying people $70,000-$80,000 a year just to drive for me.
Just to drive for you. Exactly.
You know, now, so you're telling me you can't go out there and find something to do that's going to make you a great living? I mean, I just don't think that. I don't know if they know the possibilities that's out there.
Well, that's one thing, Les, we got to do. We can do it right here on this show. We need to start talking about those things.
Right.
Because, you know, at the end of the day, you know, everybody's not an athlete, and you're not going to everybody's not going to get a college scholarship.
Right.
And you may not be a good student in high school, but you may be good with your hands. And so you can pick up a trade, just like the young man in Atlantic, Andre, you was talking about, who's building.
Absolutely.
And you can become a plumber.
Right.
You know, electricians and plumbers can make $100,000 a year.
Right.
Come on, man.
Right.
So do they know that? Right. And so
that's the question.
I believe let's make sure we have a avenue or come to agreement where once a month we can talk business.
I think that's a great idea, Bobby. I think so. And Bobby, did you ever have to pay for one of your kids' educations?
My last 2.
Okay, so I've had to pay for 2 as well.
It's no joke.
One went to Hampton, which is a private school,
right?
And one's at Howard right now, which is a private school.
Private school.
Each one $38,000 to $40,000 a year, and and those scholarships.
Those scholarships.
So imagine a kid coming out of school with a $200,000 student loan. And now they're trying to start their life, their family, start having kids. That's a debt they'll never be able to pay.
That's a debt they won't be able to pay. That's right.
And we got to figure out, okay, if you don't, because some kids go to college because that's what their mom and dad's always told them they needed to do.
Right.
But they're not college material. So they've gone for a year. They've accumulated this debt. When they come out and say, oh man, I want to be a diesel mechanic, or I want to do, you know, I like working on cars. Well, they could have saved all that money if they had just been educated, went and did something that they were going to be happy doing, making their own money. Then they don't have all that debt sitting out there.
Exactly.
That's a big issue for a lot of these kids coming out of school.
Issue, and I think part of that, and I don't know how we get it over. I'm not saying that counselors in high school are not being honest with these kids. Andre, I was so happy to hear you say that Atlantic had this building class because, you know, back in the old day, we had shop. We had an we had a mechanics course, and all of a sudden they stopped having those classes at one time. And it's like, dude, what about those kids like that? You know, they do it with their hands. They're not going to college. Right. You know, give them some hope, give them a dream, right? And I tell you guys, I know older men in Delray Beach who are great with their hands, who did really well in life. They did extremely well in life.
McNeil.
And so, absolutely. So anyway, man. So yeah, we got to do it, man. We can do once a month. We need to at least have a show dedicated every month, once a week, once a month, about entrepreneurship, about ownership, investing, in all those different kind of things that's going to help these kids.
I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea, Bobby. Maybe we should.
Or just a career.
What's that?
Just a career, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe careers. What careers can I do? Point. Because a lot of times,
Andre, we missed what you said, man. What you said?
Right, we missed what you said. You said careers.
You were talking about you. So was it me or you?
No, we couldn't hear what you were saying, Dre.
Oh, I was just talking about careers. Did y'all hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we heard that.
Okay. So let's do it, man.
Just what type of careers can they get into?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Well, good, man. Well, hey guys, thanks for being on the show, man. You know, it's a big night for all of us tonight. You know, all those football lovers. We got Georgia, Alabama in about an hour.
Right.
And, I think everybody on this show rooting for Georgia. I don't root for Georgia, by the way. I know I live in Atlanta. You know, I got this crazy thing in me, Dre. You know, in 1981, when Georgia won their last national championship, that's how long ago it's been, by the way. I was a senior in college, and Florida State was ranked number 2 in the country. Georgia ranked number 1, and some kind of way they chose Notre Dame, who was ranked number 6, to play for the national title game. So I don't ever wish Georgia well.
Oh wow, wow.
I'm still holding a grudge.
That's cold-blooded.
I'm still holding a grudge. All my neighbors, you know, I live in Georgia. All my neighbors, they Georgia Bulldogs, man, and I be hating on them all the time. but I think Georgia might do it tonight, though. I really do. But you just can't say with that guy who's coaching on the other sideline, you just can't give it to Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks again for being on the show. Hey, listen, if y'all like the show tonight, y'all share, comment with your friends, talk about this conversation we've had tonight, and tune in, because we will start doing shows every month on this, so you guys can learn and you can help our kids do better in their lives. Thank you guys for being here. Thanks,
All right, man. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you, Doc.
Okay, take care.
All right, later.
All right, man.